Welcome to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. You will hear from industry leaders covering innovative, cutting-edge business, learning, and HR topics that weave current market research and technology into each episode. Our Excellence at Work podcast is hosted by Brandon Hall Group's Chief Operating Officer and Principal HCM Analyst, Rachel Cook.
Thank you for tuning in to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of learning and is your L&D organization ready for it? I am excited to have with me today Dr. Vikas Joshi, the CEO of Harbinger Group. Hello and welcome.
Hi.
It's great to have you, and I would like to share with our audience a little bit about your background and organization. Dr. Vikas Joshi is a business leader who is passionate about product development and technology entrepreneurship. His mission is to help create software products that make a difference. A key part of that mission is to inspire tech professionals and entrepreneurs to grow and develop. Harbinger, for those of you that are familiar, provides cutting-edge e-learning solutions which include Flash to HTML5, transformation, gamification framework, micro-learning, interactive video, and competency-based learning. They work with strategic partners around the world to develop innovative, high-performing learning solutions. They have also won 7 Brandon Hall Group Excellence Awards in 2021. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have also, Brandon Hall Group and Harbinger have collaborated on an e-learning book in 2021, Why Modernize Learning Content, Things You Need to Know, which can be accessed through our membership center, and also we'll provide a link in our blog. Lots of interesting insights there. And so I would love to now get started. I'd love to hear from you, Dr. Joshi, about your perspective on L&D as it's practiced in enterprises. It sometimes can lag behind as technology and people expectations are moving ahead. And are we in one of those times, from what you're seeing?
Absolutely. And without a doubt, there are 2 sort of major shifts that characterize today's work. One is the skill economy, right? And the second is the hybrid work. Powerful as each one of them is on its own, the 2 together make an explosive combination that has serious consequences for work. And let's look at each one of them. First, the skill economy, right? As technology races ahead, skill gaps appear, and they widen, and they morph, and people have to keep up. Back in the day, a teacher could get by without knowing much about technology. Not so today. Same with developers, same with accountants, any number of knowledge work professions you mentioned, you would see that there's a race for reskilling. And obviously, businesses are looking to L&D to solve for skilling, right? So it kind of sounds like the 1970s where the company is the place where you learn and shape yourself. We had kind of forgotten that for a couple of decades, but it's come back right around. The other major shift is the hybrid work. But first of all, you can be sure that you can no longer assume that everybody's going to be in the same place at the same time. And you can be almost certain that no matter what people are working on, they're doing something else at the same time, right? So a never-ending quest for new skills and a distributed workforce that has just tasted this autonomy of working from home. That's the future of work. And the future of learning is deeply entwined with the future of work. In the old days, the idea was you first learn, then you go work. But it's a myth to say learning precedes work. Maybe training precedes work, certification precedes work, onboarding precedes work, but learning continues with work. You know, the essence of learning is the tools and people you encounter when you're at work. And you learn by asking other people, by doing apprenticeship, by trying out various things, by reflecting on what just happened, by turning around and asking someone, by teaching others, by supporting, by being part of a group. All those learning methods are experiencing a big reset together with this reset in work. And that's what makes this so heady and so exciting at the same time for L&D.
Absolutely. And so if what I'm hearing from you is the important areas is around reskilling. We've also seen our research a lot of around upskilling. And how to develop and how to engage, especially when you have people that are working remotely and they are multitasking. There's more and more research from our firm and scientific and psychology research around neuroscience, the ability that the brain has and to what capacity that they can learn and in what time frame. And so more and more of this new way of or modernizing learning and offering, continuous learning is what we're seeing.
Yeah, totally. And, just going back to your, 2022 research, the number one priority for L&D is to address the need to link learning to skills and competencies. Right there, you can see that 74% of your respondents stated that to be their number one priority. So what you're saying is very true.
And with that said, what challenges does this face L&D leaders and for providers?
The challenges are different for different constituencies. And I can think of three constituencies that we need to look at. One is the L&D leaders. Obviously, the learning and development leader is the ultimate, consumer of learning technology, but also the learning content providers and the learning technology providers. They all face different sets of challenges. To begin with, the L&D leaders have this unique challenge of straddling between what the business is asking for, that is to solve for skills immediately, and what the learners are asking for, which is something as frictionless as social media, something that's easy to consume, doesn't take much time, and looks easy to consume. Now, the frictionless consumption is okay for social media, but when it comes to learning, you need to do a little more, right? So the bar for expectations is going up, but the need to impart knowledge isn't coming down. You still need to do what you need to do. And the third challenge, apart from meeting the business mandate and meeting customer expectations, is doing this in a fast and agile way. Because the very definition of the project keeps changing depending upon the way technology changes. So gone are the days when you could lay out a whole project plan that doesn't change for 2 years. Things keep changing. So this whole adaptability and agility has become important for learning and development leaders. So I see this as a invitation to reinvent L&D from the perspective of how they can now make the most of the seat at the table. At the same time, the learning content providers have a whole new set of challenges. How to keep the content current, how to keep it accessible, and how to keep it consistent. Now, content has to be current because 4 out of 5 digital publishers we talk to, the first thing that comes up is the aging of content. Our content looks jaded, it looks old, it looks obsolete. We need to do something about it. And 4 out of 5 say that. The fifth one is going to come around and say the same sooner or later, right? And the issue is deeper than simply making it look new. There's many things that go into it, and I'm going to give an example of how we could do that. The other issue with content providers is their need to make learning accessible. At one point of time, accessibility had to do with complying with accessibility standards, but
Mm-hmm.
now it's a diversity and inclusion issue.
Mm.
Because disabilities tend to be of different kinds, and you want to include all learners in your learning content. So how does a content producer factor that in, whether the accessibility standards mandate or not? And finally, consistency, because the content is going to be delivered in contexts that you cannot imagine. It could be going out through a learning experience platform, a learning management system, or simply delivered in the flow of work. So the ability to keep it consistent and from a single source derive your micro learning objects or PDFs or what you have, that's becoming important. So that's the learning content provider's set of challenges. When it comes to the learning technology providers, which is our final constituency, they have to leverage hybrid work patterns. And what do I mean by that? Firstly, if you go back to where we started, a big part of learning is the social environment and tools of a workplace.
Mm-hmm.
When all of that has become hybrid, how do you personalize content? How do you deliver some of those experiences that cater to that individual's needs?
Mm-hmm.
In a classroom, you had minimal scope to do that. But in an individual learner setting, someone might want to watch a video. Someone may want to skim through it as fast as they can, or preferably just get a summary of it. So the technology providers need to provide multiple options to learners.
Mm-hmm.
And then they need to integrate with systems of record, because whether it is continuous performance management or employee engagement, all these systems will critically be entwined with learning experiences. And so you need to be able to have this interoperability. And finally, embedding learning into places where people live. And people live in Teams, in Slack, in Salesforce. Those are the places where employees live. And learning must occur there. So there's a lot of systems integration work that falls out of this. So those are some of the things tech providers are grappling with. So long answer, but I see these three constituencies differently experiencing the reset.
Sure. And there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot to address. As you're looking at your content, and some of the conversations I've been having and looking at our research is that not all of your content, that you don't have to start over with all of your content. You can leverage, past content depending on how relevant it is. However, the modification of it or the modernizing of it through the technology, through the images, through the delivery, those are things that need to be addressed, and that will take some effort. I have two questions for you. One is around going back to your point around accessibility. What are your thoughts as far as the delivery of content? Does everything have to be the same to address and to be inclusive to all different types of needs or diversity needs and challenges, or do you customize it based on your audience?
Well, the answer has to do with personalization. If it is a choice that the learner has about the way they experience a video, for example, or the speed at which they experience content, that would be far superior than have a all-inclusive, accessible, content delivery. So providing those options to make sure you do not exclude anybody is a good idea. But for a given individual, they will only see their preferred method of experiencing content.
And that makes sense, because you want the experience based on how you based on the best way that you want to receive that information. Where I
Indeed.
think there's some confusion there about what and how content should be designed and delivered, where, but having that personal aspect of it, or the personalization, where they can receive it in a manner that makes sense to them, to kind of remove some of the unnecessary noise or information or graphics that may actually hinder the experience than make it beneficial to them. And so what also around solution frameworks, what solution frameworks are available to address these challenges beyond the personalization, and what opportunities lie ahead that you see?
That's really the good news. There's problems that technology creates, and there's solutions that technology creates. So
more like disruptions.
so now we have, one whole bucket of frame tools is it focuses on learner engagement, because the new reset basically causes the learner isolation, right? Everybody goes home, so how do you engage them? And these tools include things like interactivity builders that let you add interactions to learning. They include nudge learning platforms that specifically deliver targeted learning experiences at the right time in the right place. Video skimming tools that let you experience a video without having to go through it. You simply skim through it over the timeline and just see keywords to even know whether it's interesting. Question generators that let you take a piece of content and generate questions out of it. These are just examples of engagement tools. One particularly interesting example is with a Harbinger customer that I'm about to tell you about. And this is a hot dog chain, perhaps the world's largest, with over 350 outlets across the US alone. You probably know who they are. Their problem, the usual challenge of fast food, quick service outlet providers, right? Frontline workers are mostly temps, they're in and out, there's a huge churn, they need to learn fast, and then building the necessary skills quickly is at a premium. And the skill in question here is how to quickly look up a recipe for a hot dog. And now there are about 200 of those, all PDF files that list these recipes. And the frontline worker is most likely going to simply use the service desk to ask the question. Here's what the order looks like. What recipe do I use? And the support desk can stay pretty busy if you consider there are 350 franchises, calling in as the drive-through lines gets busy. What Harbinger did was we proposed a chatbot for frontline workers to learn recipes on the job. Using artificial intelligence and natural language processing, what Harbinger did was we built this bot that could take a user query, infer the intent, read the PDF files, and recommend the right recipe within a fraction of a second. Over time, the bot incorporated user feedback and got better at finding recipes. What I love about this story is that it's a great example of learning on the job at the point of performance, right when you need it, because that's when you're going to learn it the most. And the use of AI to make it possible was particularly exciting for us. So this was the sort of first bucket of learner engagement solution frameworks.
Right. That really is helpful, kind of thinking through some of the challenges and how to address them, and developing that framework to guide you. That's critical, I think, for
right.
And
like you said, you don't have to start from the beginning every time. So obviously, you need frameworks for content migration, content transformation, and doing accessibility at high scale. So you can take what you have and rapidly transform it to new formats. How do you do that? And sometimes it's not just a technical project, hey, we got this legacy stuff and we need to modernize it. It can actually be a blessing in disguise. Now, we recently worked with a digital publisher that serves the oil and gas industry in the US. And they've been around for 50 years and they have a long list of offerings. They have instructional programs, e-learning, knowledge solutions, competency management, virtual learning, the whole 9 yards. They faced a challenge that's not too different from many other digital publishers. They had a large library of courses that was developed a while ago for operators and technicians. Unfortunately, it included flash technology and they were outdated as a result. And they were also outdated in terms of design as well. So the goal was to redesign, but not only removing the flash dependency, but also to support the new age learners. So the question was, the operators and technicians of today, how are they different from those for whom those earlier courses were designed? What has changed and what will happen now? So instead of simply redeveloping the library, what Harbinger did was we developed a solution that was future ready.
Okay.
We supported accessibility compliance right out of the gate, micro-learning nuggets that could be combined in different ways within customer contexts, a new graphic design style, responsive and mobile-friendly layouts, and easy to update content. So all those things together made up a whole new way of delivering this content. And the last bit was the ease of updating content. And this was so important because these regulations keep changing every now and then. And you do not want to change everything. You just want to change the pieces that you must. And they should propagate through the courses. So we use the Xylem learning content management system to accomplish the migration. And this turned out to be a major reduction in operating costs, at the same time raising the learning engagement and driving business growth. So once again, what started out as an annoyance turned out to be a blessing in disguise and produced a much better library.
That's great. And how long did something like that take you and your client?
Yeah, so this was a pretty sizable project with over 300 courses. And so it took us several months to get through this.
That's pretty impressive time frame, though.
Yeah, what makes it possible is the use of technology. If you were to hand wire each one of these, that would be impossible. So you need to have technology to extract content objects, drop the ones that do not work anymore, and then do the replacements. So a lot of this is developed over years of practice at Harbinger.
Right, and Vikas, and I think also one of the pieces too that I know that you find crucial too is making sure that change management piece and also the client organization, that they have someone that's vested in communicating with your team. Because oftentimes where we see a disconnect or things that extend is that lack of communication or staying on point on projects. And sometimes, the providers may get blamed for it, but it's oftentimes the corporation, the client organization, where they have so many other priorities that they haven't really allocated the right time and right time allocation towards. They may have the investment, but they don't have that time allocation where they are going to commit, to giving you feedback, to providing you with materials, to, making sure that their strategy is clear to you. So those are really important.
Indeed, it's a team sport. I recall a case where, these business schools that advertise their accreditations, and those accreditations usually come from bodies like the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business. That's quite a mouthful, ASCSB, right? And they are a client. And they're a global nonprofit with over 900 colleges, 4 million students. It's a big operation. What's interesting is that they rely on these member volunteers to essentially carry out the accreditation processes. And with a growing scale and changing, guidelines, they needed to develop competencies in these volunteers.
Okay.
And those had to be in tune with the new accreditation standards. So the learning goals were very clear. The learning goals were know what is the accreditation philosophy, the new philosophy, know why your role matters, and know how to communicate the decisions to the college. Okay. But what we did, and this is where their participation really helped, is we went one level underneath those goals and said, what competencies underlie these goals? What are the competencies they must develop so that they can perform on these goals? And we identified analysis, interpretation, judgment, and consensus building as the 4 critical competencies that needed to be supported. So a learning strategy followed. Long story short, over 90% participants attained each of those learning goals. So when you take the stakeholders into confidence, and when you're willing to go deep with them to design your learning program, you get their participation. And this is a nonprofit.
That's a really good example. And before we wrap up today, Vikas, is there anything else any other examples or any other recommendations that you would like to share?
Absolutely. I shared with you already examples of a fast food chain, a nonprofit, a publisher serving oil and gas.
Great example.
We're working with a skill learning platform. Again, arguably the industry's largest. And one of the things they pride on is to create curated learning pathways for upskilling. What that means is you would have a variety of learning events that would lead you to your outcomes, but each event could be coming from a different LMS or a different content source. So you can imagine the amount of work involved in interoperability and integration. We help them with that. These are only a handful of the thousands of projects we have accomplished over the past 3 decades, even from times when e-learning was called computer-based training. So when I connect the dots, I see a clear theme emerging. Work is changing, and so is learning. And so Harbinger customers are increasingly looking for newer ways to engage learners, link their learning to work competencies, automate content creation and transformation, and make the content delivery seamless through integration. Those are the themes that jump out. At Harbinger, we span the spectrum from learning strategy, instructional design, development, deployment, integration with platforms, the whole works. It's been an exciting time for the industry, and we certainly feel proud to be part of it.
Well, I'm certainly proud to be able to have you here with me today and for you to be able to share some of your perspectives and great customer examples. Again, congratulations for winning 7 Brandon Hall Group Excellence Awards in 2021. So we're excited to see what 2022 brings, as I'm sure a lot more great examples and excellence work that you have underway. It's been great to have you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I hope everyone listening in also enjoyed and found a lot of value out of our discussion today. We look forward to chatting with you next time.